In 2022, Harley-Davidson killed the Sportster. Not retired it, killed it. The Iron 883 and the 48, cheapest way into the brand for over 60 years, gone. And the reason they gave was emissions compliance. Here's the part I want you to sit with. They were losing $2,000 on every Sportster they built. So instead of fixing a bike that lost money, they just ended it. Clean business decision, right? The market did not agree, and it said so almost immediately. Riders wanted it back, dealers wanted it back. And now, 3 CEOs later, Harley is building it again, on the exact engine they swore could not survive. So, what actually happened here? To begin with, what is a Sportster? For those non-riders watching and new to Harleys, this is the answer. It was the longest continuous idea in American motorcycling, and that is not me being dramatic. That is just the timeline. It started as a fix, honestly. In 1952, Harley built the K model, a side-valve 45 cubic inch V-twin, making around 30 horsepower that struggled to break 80 miles per hour. It ran from 1952 to 1956, and it just was not fast enough. The British twins were embarrassing it. So in 1957, Harley took the K and KH chassis, dropped a new overhead valve top end onto it, and called the result the XL Sportster. 883cc, 40 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, 7.5 to 1 compression, iron barrels, and iron heads. List price $1,103. Harley built just 1,983 of that original 1957 XL. And get this, there was no formal dealer introduction, no campaign. They unveiled it at regional gatherings, almost quietly, the way you put out something you are not totally sure about yet. Those iron heads are where the name came from. Riders called it the Ironhead, and that Ironhead engine ran from 1957 all the way to 1985. 28 years on one fundamental architecture. Think about that. And the bike sharpened fast. The 1958 XLC showed up with domed pistons and bigger ports and valves. Then came the one that really mattered, the 1959 XLCH. The competition hot, high pipes, magneto ignition, bobbed rear fender, and that small peanut tank that became one of the most recognizable shapes in all of motorcycling. Custom builders are still copying that silhouette, and most of them were not born when it was drawn. From 1957 until 2003, the engine was solid mounted straight to the frame. You did not just hear a Sportster, you felt it, through the tank, the pegs, the bars, all of it. Rubber mounts did not arrive until 2004. For almost half a century, the vibration was not a flaw somebody forgot to engineer out. It was the product. That was the point of it. And that is the thing a spec sheet will never show you. By the time anyone at Harley was sitting in a room deciding to discontinue this thing, the Sportster was not competing with other motorcycles. It was competing with its own history. It was the bike a teenager could actually afford. The platform every custom shop in the country already knew how to modify. The entry point that got a rider onto a Harley before they could afford a big twin, and, statistically, before they bought 3 more of them. You did not sell a Sportster to make money on the Sportster. You sold a Sportster to make a Harley owner. That was the whole logic of the cheapest bike in the lineup, and it worked for over 60 years, across more than half a dozen redesigns. Which is exactly why that $2,000 number is so strange to me. The bike supposedly losing that money was the same bike quietly building loyal Harley customers since the Eisenhower administration. Whether that math is actually a loss depends entirely on what you think the Sportster was for. Hold on to that, because it gets answered the hard way. The Sportster had nearly died before, more than once, and every single time Harley chose to fix it. From 1969 to 1981, Harley was owned by American Machine and Foundry, a conglomerate that, among other things, made bowling equipment. The AMF era is remembered for one thing above everything else, and it is not bowling. Quality just collapsed. Oil leaks were not a defect. They were a feature you learned to accept. Electrical systems failed basically on schedule. Assembly was inconsistent enough that, by some accounts, a large share of bikes left the factory already needing work. And riders did the marketing for them, in reverse. They called it Harley-Davidson, hardly drivable, Hogley Ferguson. When your own customers are inventing insults that good, you have a problem no press release is going to fix. It got genuinely dangerous too, not just embarrassing. In 1972, a redesign swapped a cast steel connection under the seat for a stamped strip that just could not carry the load. Frames failed. The bikes got recalled and dealers hand-welded reinforcement onto the frame, one bike at a time, by hand, in the dealership. That is not a recall the way we think of recalls now. That is a company fixing a structural failure with a welding torch because the alternative was worse. Then the regulators showed up, and this is the part that should sound familiar. In 1975, the Department of Transportation mandated a switch to left-side shifting. Harley's first attempt was a crude secondary shaft bolted on just to satisfy the rule, and it was bad. But watch what they did next, because this is the whole point of this act. They did not walk away from the bike because compliance was a pain. They went back and redesigned it properly in 1977. A regulation forced a change. The first fix was ugly, and they engineered a real one anyway. By 1981, AMF wanted out. 13 investors, led by Von Beals and Willie G. Davidson, bought Harley-Davidson back for $80 million. They inherited a company whose flagship cheap bike was, by then, widely regarded as one of the worst handling motorcycles ever sold. Production volume had actually gone up under AMF, while the reputation fell apart, which is the worst possible combination. More units of a bike people had learned not to trust. This is the load-bearing point of the whole video, so I am just going to say it straight. The Sportster, at its absolute lowest, was a recalled, leaking, badly handling embarrassment that 13 people had to spend $80 million to rescue, and the people who rescued it did not kill it. They fixed it. They fixed the frame. They fixed the shifter, twice. They fixed the quality. They poured money into a money-losing, reputation-wrecking product because they understood what it was actually for. Every near-death the Sportster survived. It survived because somebody decided to engineer through the problem instead of running away from it. Keep that pattern in your head, because in 2022, it breaks. The same brand that hand-welded frames in 1972, that redesigned a shifter twice to satisfy a regulator in 1977, that spent $80 million, rather than let this bike die in 1981, hits a new regulation and, for the first time in the bike's entire history, makes the opposite call. The difference is not the bike. The difference is who was in the room and what they had already decided the Sportster was worth. In 1986, the Evolution engine replaced the Ironhead in both 883 and 1100, later 1200 in sizes. The Evo was the correction made permanent. Aluminum heads and cylinders instead of iron, less weight, way less oil on the garage floor, a real jump in durability. The Evo Sportster is the bike that earned the loyalty this whole decision would eventually test. In 2009, Harley introduced the Iron 883, an Evo Sportster stripped down and priced as the entry point into the entire brand. It ran from 2009 to 2022, doing exactly the job the original 1957 XL did, putting new riders on a Harley cheaply. Then came the regulation, and this is where you get to watch that pattern from the last act break in real time. The air-cooled Evo platform could not pass Euro 5 emissions. Europe got it first. The Sportster was effectively discontinued there, around 2020 and 2021, because the air-cooled engine could not meet the standard, and Harley made a specific, documented choice right there. They decided not to engineer the platform into compliance, and the stated reason was that European volume was too low to justify the engineering spend. Now read that against 1977. In 1977, a regulator forced a change, and Harley redesigned the bike to comply. In 2020, a regulator forced a change, and Harley decided the redesign was not worth paying for. Same brand, same kind of problem, a rule the current engine could not meet. Opposite answer. And let me be clear, engineering an air-cooled engine through emissions compliance was not science fiction in 2020. Every other manufacturer building air-cooled bikes in that era either complied or moved to liquid cooling. Harley had the engineering. What it did not have, this time, was the will to spend it on a bike it had already mentally filed under loss. And here is the number the whole thing rests on, and I am just going to state it because it does not need any help from me. Harley was losing $2,000 on every Sportster they built. That is the official justification, and on its own it sounds airtight. You do not keep building a product that loses $2,000 a unit. Any business school signs off on that in about 10 seconds. Except, and you saw this coming, the Sportster was never priced to make money on the Sportster. That was the entire model, set up in 1957 and proven across 65 years. The cheap bike loses a little, so the brand gains an owner who buys bigger, buys again, buys for 30 years. A $2,000 per unit loss on a customer acquisition product is not automatically a loss. It is a customer acquisition cost. Whether it was a mistake depends completely on what those riders were worth on the back end, and that, in my opinion, is exactly the calculation this decision did not bother to make. So instead, the air-cooled Sportster, the Iron 8 83, and the 48 ended in the United States after the 2022 model year. Harley pointed riders at two replacements: the Sportster S, introduced in 2021, liquid-cooled, built on the Revolution Max engine, priced around $15,000, and the Nightster, positioned as the nominal heir to the Iron 8 83, both fine motorcycles. Neither one a $10,000 air-cooled entry point. The thing they actually killed was not a bike. It was the cheapest door into the brand. So strip Harley's framing off the decision, and here is what is left. A company that had fixed this exact bike through far worse than emissions multiple times, decided this time the fix was not worth the money, on the strength of a per unit loss number that ignored the only reason the bike had ever been priced that way in the first place. The market got a vote on whether that was the right call. It did not take long, and honestly, it was not close. The vote came back in May 2026, and it came from inside Harley's own earnings call, which is the part I find almost funny. Presenting first quarter results, Harley's chief executive, Artie Starrs, laid out a turnaround plan called Back to the Bricks, and buried in that plan was the admission. The Sportster was coming back as a 2027 model, not reimagined, not some liquid-cooled thing with the old name glued to it, air-cooled, 883cc. The Evo platform. The exact configuration Harley had said 3 years earlier was not worth engineering forward. And Starrs did not even try to sell it as nostalgia, which is what makes the language so damning. He called the Sportster the single most requested model by both riders and dealers, not one or the other. Both sides of the business asking for the bike the business had discontinued. And it was not just regional sentiment. Dealers were asking for it in Louisville, in Frankfurt, in Shanghai, which means the same Europe that triggered the emissions discontinuation was part of the demand to bring it back. Let that one sit for a second. The target price tells you what really got killed in 2022, around $10,000, built in York, Pennsylvania. They are not bringing it back as some premium collector object. They are putting it right back in the exact price slot the Iron 883 used to occupy, which means the gap left when they killed it was never actually filled by the Sportster S or the Nightster. The cheapest door into the brand was just missing for 3 model years, and now Harley is spending money to rebuild the door it spent money to tear out. The Back to the Bricks plan even puts a number on the stakes, targeting over $350 million in motor company EBITDA by 2027. The Sportster's return is not a sentimental footnote inside that, it is positioned as a contributor to it. So, the bike that allegedly lost $2,000 a unit is now part of the financial recovery of the company that killed it for losing $2,000 a unit. Read that twice. That is the indictment, and I do not even need to argue it. I just need to put it in order. Harley was losing money per unit on the Sportster. True, and it is the justification they used. The problem was solvable, because they are solving it right now. Same air-cooled engine, roughly the same price, for a market that never stopped asking. The loss was real. The conclusion they drew from the loss was the mistake. There is one piece of context I will give them, and it is the most charitable read available, so I am including it. Starrs is, roughly, the third chief executive Harley has had in about 8 years. The exact count is not the point. The point is that the people who killed the Sportster and the people bringing it back are not the same leadership. That is the kindest interpretation. It is also the most damning one, because it means the company contradicted itself inside a single product's discontinuation window. The bike that survived AMF survived a structural recall, survived a regulator in 1975, survived being called one of the worst handling motorcycles ever built, survived being so neglected that 13 people had to buy the whole company to save it, did not survive a spreadsheet. And then it did anyway, 3 years later, because the spreadsheet had been wrong about what the bike was for. Strip away 65 years of history, and the story is one sentence. Harley killed a motorcycle they were losing money on, decided the fix was not worth paying for, and then, 3 CEOs later, paid for the fix anyway and called the result one of the most requested bikes they make. Every previous time the Sportster nearly died, somebody chose to engineer through the problem. The one time somebody chose the spreadsheet instead, the spreadsheet cost them 3 model years, an entry point into the brand, and a public reversal written into an earnings call. It comes back in 2027, air-cooled, 883, around $10,000, the exact bike they decided could not exist. So here is the question I actually want you to think about, because Harley clearly did not. If the fix was affordable enough to do in 2026, what was the $2,000 loss in 2022 paying to avoid? Drop it in the comments.